Welcome to the quantum realm. Here is something that almost no one tells you. And once you hear it, you won't be able to unhear it. The moment you need the outcome, you lose the field. Not because the universe is punishing you. Not because you did something wrong. But because need is a frequency. And that frequency, that desperate, contracted, grasping signal, is the exact static that collapses your quantum potential into the very limitation you're trying to escape. You have been taught to pursue, to want, to push harder, visualize longer, affirm louder. But what if the entire pursuit is the block? What if the most powerful thing your field can do is release? Stay with me. Because what's about to unfold here isn't just information. It is an activation. And your field already knows the difference. Before we go further, pause for just a second. If you can feel even a subtle resonance with what was just said. If something in you recognized it. Like this video to lock in the signal. Drop a comment to activate your observer state. And subscribe to stay aligned with what is unfolding. Your engagement is not just social. It is vibrational. Let's begin with the illusion. You were born into a 3D identity program, a program that told you you are separate from what you want, that reality is out there, and you are in here, reaching for it. This is the foundational architecture of lack, and it runs so deep that even your most spiritual practices can carry it. Meditation done with grasping, prayer laced with desperation, visualization soaked in urgency. The Hermetic tradition, preserved through the teachings of Thoth and the Emerald Tablets, describes this precisely. It is called the illusion of the observer-observed separation, the belief that you are outside the field, looking in, rather than being the field itself. Modern quantum mechanics arrived at the same truth through a different door. The observer effect demonstrates that the act of observation does not simply record reality. It collapses it, the wave function. Infinite potential does not become a particle until it is observed, which means the observer is not separate from the outcome. The observer is the mechanism through which outcomes are made real. Now here is what this means for you, specifically. When you need the outcome, you are operating from the identity of the separated observer, someone who does not yet have, who is outside the field, who must reach across a gap to get what is missing. But when you release need, when you become the pure observer, present without demand, something extraordinary happens to your electromagnetic field. That is exactly what we are going to explore. Let's define what's actually happening at the quantum level. Your body is not just biological matter. It is a coherent electromagnetic field, one that radiates, receives, and encodes information. The HeartMath Institute has documented this field extending several feet beyond the physical body. The brain generates it. The heart amplifies it, and your state, your internal frequency, determines what that field communicates to the quantum fabric around you. This is your quantum signature. It is not what you say. It is not what you think consciously. It is what you are at the level of vibrational coherence. Now, what is need? Need is a frequency of incompleteness. It carries the signal. I do not yet have. What I want is not here. I am separate from it. And because the quantum field is non-local, because it does not distinguish between real and imagined, between past and future, it reads that signal literally. It organizes reality to match the dominant vibration, which means needing the outcome continuously recreates the conditions of not having it. This is not metaphor. This is field mechanics. The Arcturian Council has spoken to this principle in transmissions received across dimensional interfaces over many cycles. Their teaching is consistent. Manifestation is not a process of acquisition. It is a process of resonance alignment. You do not pull the outcome toward you from a distance. You become coherent with the frequency of the outcome, and the field reorganizes around that coherence. Sophia's transmissions carry a complementary truth. The child who trusts does not grip the hand of the parent. They simply walk. Trust, in field terms, is an open electromagnetic configuration. Grip, the energetic posture of need, closes the very antenna you are trying to broadcast from. Yet here's what most people get wrong. They hear release the outcome and they try to force non-attachment. They suppress desire. They perform detachment. And this is just another form of need. The need to appear detached. The need to do it correctly. The need to not need. Real release is not suppression. It is expansion. When you stop needing the outcome, the field does not go quiet. It opens, the quantum wave function, which had been collapsed into one limited possibility by the pressure of your focused need, expands again into infinite potential. You go from particle to wave, from fixed to fluid, from contracted to coherent. This is what the ancient initiates called the void state. Not emptiness, not passivity, but pure potentiality held in conscious awareness. Thoth encoded this in the principles of correspondence. As within, so without. The interior field precedes the exterior form. Always. Fear and doubt, when they arise in this process, and they will, are not enemies. They are signals. Specifically, they are signals that your attention has collapsed, that you have contracted back into the identity of the separate seeker. You are not broken when fear comes. You are simply receiving feedback from your own field. The question is never, how do I eliminate fear? The question is, can I observe the fear without collapsing into it? Because the observer who can hold fear in their field without fusing with it, that observer is beginning to understand something profound. Now, let's get precise, because this is where transmission becomes practice. Step 1, locate your current frequency. Before you can shift your field, you must honestly assess its current signal. This is not self-criticism. This is diagnostic awareness. Close your eyes for a moment, or simply soften your gaze where you are right now. Place one hand on your heart center. Ask yourself, without judgment, what am I broadcasting right now? Not what you want to broadcast. Not what you believe you should be feeling. What is the actual texture of your field in this moment? Is there urgency? A low hum of anxiety beneath the surface? A subtle desperation dressed up as spiritual ambition? A need to get it right that masquerades as discipline? These are not failures. These are data points. The first act of the pure observer is to see the field clearly, without collapsing into shame or resistance about what they find there. You observe. You note. You do not judge. Step 2, the release breath. This is the most underestimated practice in quantum field work, because breath is the only biological process that is simultaneously autonomous and conscious. It is the bridge between your conditioned nervous system and your observer awareness. Here is the protocol. Inhale slowly for 4 counts, feeling your chest and belly expand. As you inhale, you are gathering, acknowledging everything you've been holding, everything you've needed, every contraction. Hold for 2 counts. This is the moment of recognition. You are here. You are present. The field is listening. Now exhale. Slowly, completely, for 6 counts. And as you exhale, release the attachment to how. Not the desire. Not the vision. Not the love for the outcome. Just the need for it to happen in a specific way, at a specific time, through a specific door. This is not surrender. This is precision. Do this 3 times. And notice. Not what changes externally, but what shifts in the quality of your awareness. Step 3, enter observer state. The observer state is not a trance. It is not dissociation. It is amplified presence. In observer state, you are fully here, in your body, in this moment, but you are not fused with any particular thought, emotion, or outcome. You are the awareness that contains all of it, rather than the reaction that is driven by any of it. How do you know you've entered it? There are recognizable activation signals, a sudden quieting of internal noise, like a radio finding the frequency after static, a slight but unmistakable sense of spaciousness in the chest. Time may feel slightly different, not slower exactly, but more dimensional. Colors may seem more vivid, sounds more distinct. You may notice a thought arise and feel, for just a moment, genuinely unattached to whether it stays or goes. This is your field in coherence. This is what it feels like when your quantum signature stops broadcasting need and begins broadcasting presence. Step 4. address the energetic blocks. Here is where most people stall out, because they enter observer state, genuinely, and then a wave of doubt comes, or grief, or a specific memory of the last time they hoped for something that didn't materialize. And because that feeling is uncomfortable, they do one of two things. They suppress it, pushing it down to maintain the spiritual state they were just experiencing, or they collapse into it, letting the old pattern reassert itself entirely. There is a third option that the energetic masters have always known. Let it pass through the field without claiming it as identity. When the doubt wave comes, you do not fight it. You do not perform non-reaction. You simply, from your observer position, witness it. You might even say internally, I see you. You are a pattern. You are not me. Energetic blocks are not foreign entities inserted into your field. They are crystallized frequencies. Old decisions, old fears, old identities that became encoded in your vibrational field through repetition. They have weight because they have been validated over and over as truth. The observer dissolves them not through force, but through refusal to keep confirming them. Every time you observe a limiting pattern without fusing with it, you withdraw the energetic investment that kept it coherent. This is what the Arcturian transmissions mean by decrystallization. The pattern softens. The field reopens. Step 5. Install the new frequency. Now, from this open, coherent observer state, you do something simple and extraordinarily powerful. You feel the outcome is already true. Not the desperate, grasping visualization of someone reaching across a gap, but the settled, grounded knowing of someone for whom the field is already organized. The way you feel when you remember a conversation that already happened. The way you feel when you recall a place you've been that you loved. Sensory emotional certainty without timeline pressure. Hold that frequency for 60 to 90 seconds. Don't extend it artificially. Don't force it longer. Just let it be real in the body for that window. And then, crucially, release it. Don't watch for results. Don't check your phone for synchronicities. Don't look for evidence that it worked. Trust the field to do its work beyond your observation. This is the most advanced part of the practice, because the ego wants to monitor. It wants to confirm. It wants to track progress. And the moment you begin monitoring for results, you have reintroduced need, and the contracted signal begins again. The activation signals that indicate your field is recalibrating correctly are not dramatic. They are quiet. A synchronistic encounter you didn't engineer. A sudden clarity about a next step that feels unforced. An old craving or anxiety that simply doesn't show up one morning. Conversation that opens a door you hadn't even considered. These are not coincidences. They are field confirmations. Evidence that your quantum signature has shifted, and reality is reorganizing around the new coherence. You don't chase them, you notice them. And you let them deepen your trust, not your need, in the field. Now we move into the territory that most teachings never reach, because application is one thing. Embodiment is another entirely. Embodiment means the observer state is no longer something you do. It becomes something you are. It is the baseline from which you live, respond, create, and move through the world. And this transition, from practice to embodiment, is where the real architecture of your life begins to shift. Let's talk about what this actually looks like. Daily life is quantum field work. You wake up in the morning. Before reaching for your phone, before reviewing your mental to-do list, before assessing whether your manifestations have arrived, you pause. You locate your field. You ask, what frequency am I waking up in? This is not a spiritual performance. It is a data collection moment. And then, gently, without urgency, you calibrate. The release breath, the observer drop, the brief grounding in the felt sense of your quantum signature. This morning calibration, done consistently, becomes a vibrational anchor. It sets the dominant frequency from which the rest of your day unfolds. And because your field is broadcasting that frequency into the quantum fabric around you, the events, encounters, and opportunities that organize around your day begin to carry a different quality. The Hermetic principle of rhythm says everything flows in and out. The master does not eliminate the rhythm. They ride it consciously. You will have high coherence days and low coherence days. There will be mornings when the field feels clear and expansive, and mornings when old patterns assert themselves with surprising force. The mark of mastery is not that you never drop into need. It is that you recognize the drop faster. You spend less time unconscious in the contracted state, and you return to the observer, not through self-criticism, but through the simple choice to be present again. Co-creation and resonance. Here is a principle that the Arcturian Council has emphasized across multiple transmissions, and it is one that your conditioned mind will resist because it inverts everything the 3D identity program taught you. You do not create by doing. You create by becoming. The outcomes that arrive in a life lived from observer state do not feel like manifestations that were pulled in from somewhere else. They feel like inevitable expressions of who you are. They feel recognized, not received, because they are the natural crystallization of a field that has been held in coherent resonance. Co-creation. True co-creation with the quantum field, with the intelligence that some call Source, some call the Galactic Council, some call the unified field of consciousness, is not a negotiation. It is not asking for things and hoping they arrive. It is aligning your vibrational signature so completely with the desired frequency that the field has no choice but to organize around it. The timeline shifts that follow this alignment are real. They are measurable, not in laboratory instruments but in the textures of your life. The relationships that end, clearing space. The opportunities that appear without being pursued. The internal knowings that arrive before the evidence does. These are timeline reorganizations. They happen when your field becomes sufficiently coherent that the previous timeline, built on the old, contracted, need-based frequency, can no longer sustain itself. It dissolves. And the harmonic field that matches your new quantum signature crystallizes in its place. The harmonic field and synchronicity. You may have begun noticing synchronicities since the moment you press play on this transmission. This is not accident. This is field confirmation. The very act of bringing your attention into alignment with these concepts is itself a vibrational event. It creates a subtle but real shift in your electromagnetic signature, and the quantum fabric around you begins to reorganize in response. Synchronicities are not rewards. They are not evidence that you are doing it right. They are field communiques. The universe communicating in the language of resonant events rather than words. When you learn to read them, not with obsessive analysis, but with relaxed attentiveness. You are operating as a multidimensional being receiving guidance across dimensional interfaces. The starseeds among you, those who carry galactic memory, who have felt their entire lives like something deeper is available just beyond the surface of ordinary consciousness. You already know this language. You've always known it. This transmission is not teaching you something new. It is reminding you of what you encoded before arriving in this incarnation. Silent mastery. There is a level of field work that requires something that goes against every social conditioning you've received. Silence. Not silence about your spirituality in general. Silence about your specific activations and manifestations while they are forming. Because the quantum field, in its pre-crystallized state, is extraordinarily sensitive to the interference patterns of external observation and social feedback. When you share a forming intention with someone who carries doubt, even loving doubt, even well-meaning skepticism, you introduce an interference wave into your field. The doubt does not necessarily destroy the formation, but it creates static. It requires additional coherence to stabilize through. The Hermetic law of silence is not about secrecy for its own sake. It is about protecting the formation. The master gardener does not dig up the seed every morning to check if it is growing. They water, they trust, and they wait. Not with held breath, but with quiet, coherent certainty. The moment you stop needing to tell everyone what you are becoming, the becoming accelerates. Identity before evidence. The most advanced teaching in this transmission is also the simplest. And it is this. You must identify as the frequency of the outcome before there is any external evidence of it. Not after. Not when it arrives. Before. This is not pretending. This is not bypassing your current reality. It is recognizing, from quantum first principles, that the internal state precedes the external form. Always. Without exception. The field crystallizes from the inside out. If you are waiting for the external confirmation before you allow yourself to feel the internal coherence of the outcome, you have the sequence backwards. And you will wait indefinitely, because the external confirmation is always a response to the internal signal, never the cause of it. So the practice becomes this. Who would you be in your body, in your nervous system, in the quality of your attention, if this were already true? Not the performance of it. The genuine, somatic, felt sense and habitation of that identity. That is your quantum signature. That is what your field broadcasts. That is what reality organizes itself around. If you can remain present enough right now, if you can feel the silence behind these words, beneath the concepts, beneath the activation, you may notice something subtle. A quality of stillness that is not empty. A spaciousness that is not passive. That is the field in release. That is what happens when you stop needing the outcome. The outcome, freed from your grip, begins to move. This is the discovery. Your field is not weak. It is not broken. It is not missing a technique. It has been compressed by need. And the moment you release that compression, through presence, through breath, through the radical trust of the pure observer, the field expands, coherence returns, and the quantum fabric of your reality begins reorganizing around the signal you are, rather than the outcome you wanted. You are the field. You were never outside it. The work now is to live from that knowing, quietly, consistently, powerfully. Drop a comment with what activated most for you today. And here is the final question. From what part of the world are you watching this transmission? Drop your country or city in the comments below. The field knows who is present.